Destination together, won't you set me free? I'll take a train, a plane, a big cruise ship, it doesn't really matter to me. Destination people always seem to find the magic and the mystery in this beautiful world. Don't get left behind.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Tom Anderson, and this is Webinar on Wednesday with Destinations Together. As always, a warm welcome to our Zoom listeners and cruise line executives that are tuning in. Here are a few key news items for the week. Although COVID cases are increasing at a slower rate, there's an ongoing concern of a potential major increase as the weather cools and the flu season approaches. Worldwide, we must also come to grips with the fact that there have been over 1 million deaths from COVID. COVID-19 testing has become more pervasive and news flow on a vaccine has become more positive. With the US presidential election approaching, the American people are likely still be flummoxed by the unusual president debate last night. Cruises have started in Germany and Italy with no incidents thus far. Booking data from each of the cruise companies has indicated pent-up demand. Finally, the CDC has extended the no sail order until the end of October, so hopefully cruising from the US will likely start soon. The news is certainly more encouraging regarding the travel sector, marking the beginning of the long road back for the cruise industry. In the meantime, bills must be paid, and those in businesses reliant on the cruise industry would be well served to think outside the box to identify a new revenue stream to help ensure their economic viability and longer-term survival. The business owner must seek and seize new opportunities during this pandemic. The virus has changed how we internet, how we interact with each other, how we require to safeguard our health and biosecurity, and how we entertain ourselves. Such fundamental change often brings new opportunity. In fact, Destinations Together was founded as a result of these very conditions. In today's webinar, we hope to inspire you to expand your thinking and reimagine the opportunities. We will hear from 3 innovative companies today that, as a result of the pandemic, found a way to pivot their business and develop a totally new revenue stream. They have plenty of detail and are ready to answer any questions during the Q&A session. In the meantime, we'd like to do a quick poll just to see how many listeners today have also found new business opportunities during the pandemic. Today's presentation is hosted by Destinations Together, which is an open platform of relevant information and collaboration to support the tourism industry. It is designed to help everyone connect, collaborate, and hopefully find solutions to bridge the gap until cruise ships and tourism return to your region. I'll turn this over to Larry and share some important points and information, and then introduce our speakers for today's Destinations Together webinar on Wednesday.
Hey, thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. First off, let me recognize Tony Marie and Felipe Lopez of Terrace Consultancy, who presented Glass 2 thermal detection glasses, a high-tech wearable that can accurately and reliably assess the temperature of up to 10 people per second. Check out our website for Glass 2 recorded webinar and all the other previous recorded webinars, as well as applicable PowerPoint presentations. Before we begin, let me remind you of a few important housekeeping items. We are recording this webinar and we'll upload it in the next few days. There is a Q&A tab below on your screen. We look forward in getting your questions that we can pose to Zach, Patrick, and Jason for their feedback. We encourage you all to vote on questions listed in the Q&A to ensure that we include the most important ones. Please remember, we and our guests are only providing our opinions and possible sources for further intel. Let's get started on our webinar today entitled Generate Incremental Revenue in the Pandemic. We're happy to welcome and feature 3 innovative tour operators that started totally new businesses in these challenging times to help bridge the gap in their budget caused by the pandemic. We will introduce each company separately, starting with Zach Kirkpatrick from Allen Marine, a soft adventure tour company headquartered in Sitka, Alaska. The daily management of their fleet of vessels, along with thorough cleaning protocols, led them to establish a manufacturing company to produce and ultimately distribute a disinfectant. Zach, take it away as I open up the PowerPoint presentation. Welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. We're grateful for the opportunity to present on the panel today. And, you know, I'm sitting out here in Sitka, Alaska, looking out the window and watching, literally, not making this up, watching whales and sea lions tearing salmon up. And everyone is looking forward to the return of cruising. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you a little bit about, you know, what our company is through this PowerPoint, and then launch into what we've done since the pandemic kind of devastated the industry up here in Alaska. But it won't be all doom and gloom. We have a lot of optimism too. And once again, thanks for inviting us. So Allen Marine was launched over 50 years ago in 1967 when Bob and Betty Allen, who are pictured on the next slide, moved to Sitka and opened up a shipyard. So they were hauling out boats and scraping barnacles and scrubbing bilges and working together as a family with their children. They're a true blue Alaskan story, Alaskan family. Betty is Alaska Native of the Tlingit tribe, and you see there she's standing next to a beautiful Tlingit totem pole in the family's front yard. Bob was a king crab fisherman and a bush pilot, and just a really neat Alaskan. They had a small problem though, because in the summers it was really slow. You'll see in the next slide, you know, all the boats were out fishing, and to fill this void in the summer times of you know, no work and cleaning up and hauling out boats, they decided to resurrect a sunken motor yacht that you see pictured, and they outfitted it for sightseeing tours. And that is how Allen Marine Tours was born. In the coming years, there were more vessels. You see here the St. Aquilina, and they began to build their own boats, and they pictured here is the Alaskan Dream, which is one of the first catamarans in the world with 4 engines and 4 water jets, just an innovative boat building company. And they caught this rising tide of tourism in Alaska. And the next few slides just show more of our kinds of vessels that are manufactured right here in Southeast Alaska on various tours. We also got into building lodges, and these are not overnight lodges. This is for the shore excursions in Southeast Alaska. This particular lodge pictured is in Juneau, or outside of Juneau on an island, where we do a salmon bake and bring people out to just enjoy that quintessential Alaskan experience. When Captain Soley had no choice but to crash land in the Hudson River, the story might not have had such a positive outcome had the vessels of New York Waterway not responded immediately. Well, one of our claims to fame is that many of these vessels were Allen Marine built, which we're really proud of. These are nimble jet boat vessels that can maneuver. They're highly maneuverable. And so a little piece of Sitka was on scene that day. Just another look at one of those catamarans. And to look at, this is actually kind of an old picture now. This is just a portion of our fleet. So we have a big presence in Southeast Alaska and really tight connections with the cruise lines. And to look at the current owning family. In 2011, on the next slide, you'll see we launched into an overnight cruise business. This is small expedition cruising, and that has grown steadily over the years. These were our first 2 vessels. The next slide shows a vessel that joined the fleet a few years later. And then a few years later, we went into this 10-passenger boat for really highly customized off the beaten path exploration. And finally to our largest vessel, the Chichikov Dream. So that is a big crash course in who we are and the history of Allen Marine. Now, of course, the pandemic strikes in. And it was sort of leading up to the Alaska cruise season, which, as many of you know, starts in late April, May. And so we, the owners are not people that sit with idle hands, and having 70 vessels and that need to constantly clean and disinfect over our 50 years of company history meant that we're also in the business of cleaning, a lot of cleaning. So this segues into what we've done in this incremental revenue topic today, and we'll play a short video.
My name is Zach Kirkpatrick, and I'm with Allen Marine. We're here in Sitka, which is the headquarters of Allen Marine, as locals would say, out the road at our Allen Marine Safety Services building. And I'm here with Hank Leclerc, who is our production manager of Aquox, a new venture of manufacturing disinfectants. For over 50 years, Allen Marine has offered award-winning marine excursions and small ship cruises throughout Southeast Alaska. A lot of people are surprised when they hear that we're now producing disinfectant, but what they might not be realizing is that for 5 decades, we've also been in the business of cleaning, a lot of cleaning. Through the years, our company has utilized a lot of different cleaning chemicals, but the Allen family, they're always interested in continuing to improve upon every aspect of our business. They were, in particular, looking for a solution that didn't have added dyes or fragrances, that didn't leave behind harmful residue, but of course, it also had to be extremely effective. And hypochlorous acid immediately piqued their interest because it seemed to check off all of those boxes. In fact, they even learned that our own immune systems create hypochlorous acid to ward off harmful pathogens. Hank out here is really the expert at this whole process, and I'm going to hand it over to him to tell us about the production.
The process of making Aquox is actually very simple. We start with a saltwater brine that we make here, just salt and water. Goes into a holding tank. That brine is pumped into the hydraulic section of the machine where we add softened water from our Sitka water supply. Goes into an electrolytic cell, and out of the machine comes Aquox. Again, there's only 2 ingredients, that's salt and water, and Aquox is proven to kill viruses and bacteria.
So despite originating from just salt and water and introducing electricity, this is an EPA-registered broad-spectrum hospital disinfectant. It's approved for use from hospital to nursery surfaces, and it's also really convenient and easy. You don't need to rinse or wipe clean when you're done applying it. As a locally owned company, a family-owned company, we are excited to offer this as part of sustainable Southeast Alaska communities.
So that gave, I think, a good summary of what this product is that we're producing. It's EPA registered. It's approved for hospital use. And actually, one of the neat things that we like to tout, and this is per our approved EPA label, is that we're approved from hospitals to nursery surfaces. So that can, tell you a lot about hypochlorous acid, and the fact that, as was mentioned in the video, it's not leaving behind harmful residue. We produce it as a ready-to-use product. So bottle it in 5 gallons or actually even larger for larger schools and other industries. And that eliminates the human error that can come with having to dilute a chemical or mix it. On to the next slide. One fascinating thing, and forgive me for just going ahead and reading this slide so I make sure I get every part right, but our white blood cells generate hypochlorous acid, or HOCl, as you see abbreviated there, to protect our bodies from invading pathogens. So we use this state-of-the-art machinery in Sitka to replicate the process, and you saw that a little bit on the video. We run an electrical charge through a solution the solution is just salt and water. And this effectively creates hypochlorous acid. So in other words, we're bottling in a ready-to-use product one of the same chemical compounds produced by our own immune systems to war against the dangerous diseases out there. It also is low energy production, which is something that, as we work I think as an industry in tourism towards this path of sustainability, we're proud of that fact as well. We have 2 products, and it's just at different parts per million of the active ingredient, hypochlorous acid, and it's denoted by what you see. So disinfectant 275 is 275 parts per million, 525 is 525. So people say, well, what's the difference? What should I buy? The 525 I guess just to say that 275 is more than enough for most practical purposes. For example, for our own offices and vessels, that's what we would use. The 525 is more of, if you were in the healthcare hospital and looking for some other pathogens on the kill list, there's things like HIV, and also MRSA and some of these harder to kill pathogens. This is a list I won't bore everyone with, but suffice to say that we are approved per the EPA for a number of different facilities, as I mentioned before, from nursing homes and emergency rooms and ICUs down to churches and cruise lines, health club facilities, school buses, and more. So there's many different ways to apply Aquax. It can be, one of the popular things is electrostatic sprayers, which I know many people are familiar with, but also just traditional spray bottles. And we encourage, of course, to follow the directions for use. One of the things that is interesting about the product that some people would say is a con is that there is a shelf life. So when you produce it, it should be, after 30 days, it should be tested with a chlorine strip to make sure that, that the effectiveness is still there. Now, that's almost one of those bad good things, because it also shows just kind of the natural process behind this of just taking 3 simple ingredients: salt, water, electricity, and you have this EPA registered chemical that is tough against viruses and bacteria, and yet suitable from the hospital to the nursery. So we see this as something to do, as is the topic here today, of incremental revenue, but B, an opportunity to get the cruise industry back on its feet. And Allen Marine here in Southeast Alaska plays a big role in cruise ship relationships and tours and shore excursions throughout Southeast Alaska. And we're working with many businesses throughout Southeast and the rest of the state and elsewhere in the United States to roll this out, and are really excited about it. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about our company today, and I look forward to any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Zach, thank you very much. That was excellent. It was nice to learn about Aquax, which obviously is a product that's extremely useful for these times. And I still can't get over the start, and I just have this vision of my mind of the whales and the seals going after the salmon out there. Alaska is an amazing place. So thank you. That was excellent. Next up is Tony Murray, a tour operator and port agent from Virgin Excursions in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. After the cruise ship stopped calling, Tony got busy and developed a sales and marketing entity promoting Aegis microbe shield and the high-tech wearable called Glass 2. Unfortunately, Tony had an unexpected conflict today and is not able to be here, but he did record the following presentation along with 2 very short videos to showcase these products. Larry?
Thank you, Tom and Larry. Thank you for having me here today. For everyone out there that's watching, my name is Tony Murray, and I'm the president and CEO of Virgin Excursions and Virgin Port Services located in St. Thomas. And we provide various services to the cruise industry, being contracted with over 30 cruise lines which call in our ports. As Tom mentioned, we're speaking about the adaptation into new and unforeseen environments. For us, diversity has always been an integral part of our business model, our mantra, if you will, and where we're always being mindful of the proverbial don't put all your eggs into one basket scenario. However, that being said, St. Thomas is a small destination, and as a result, it's inherently limited. And while we always employed a successfully diverse business model amongst our companies and services, we were still nearly 100% cruise line centric. So, now comes along COVID, which obviously was something none of us could foresee. And once the no-sail orders were affected, we quickly recognized the forthcoming economic earthquake that would severely affect and damage our industry. Naturally, like everyone else, we thought, how do we navigate through this such a crippling situation? And right away, we realized that for us, we needed to further diversify into non-traditional business opportunities, but those which could still be catapulted from our existing platform of cruise industry relationships. So what we did is we set a criteria for ourselves. We needed to find something or some things that would apply to our existing client base and be able to leverage that client base as a means to kickstart the business with the hope of not only achieving a positive outcome, but also with a view to domino forward with new prospects, meaning the leveraging of those existing relationships, which aside from being opportunities within themselves, they always present someone who knows someone who can introduce us to a prospective client, allowing us to cross over into various other venues and or industries, further diversifying the scope and range of our business. The products and or services had to be of a high standard, had to be innovative, unique, and if not unique, possessing a well-proven track record of high customer satisfaction. We didn't want to spitball with a ton of potential products, hoping something would stick, but rather focus on just one or two exemplary items. We wanted something applicable towards our current situation, but would not be a short-term flash in the pan. Rather, it needed to be something that would provide a long-term product and service towards further diversifying our business model, so creating another basket or two. We didn't want to get into something like the mask because, let's face it, one day we won't be wearing protective masks, so we decided to look beyond the short-term use of masks. If you remember, shortly after COVID hit, it seemed like everyone suddenly became master salesmen of protective masks and hand sanitizers, and while there was certainly good intent, we steered away from that bandwagon of short-term items as we knew the opportunity simply wasn't going to last. Our research led us to two different and exceptional products, one of which is the Aegis antimicrobe shield, which was developed approximately 50 years ago by Dow Corning and is manufactured by Microbe. It's a name you might be familiar with. You've seen with products such as Nike, Reebok, Under Armour, and so forth, where they use it in their apparels. But with the Aegis product, we have a blue chip client list where it's employed by various rapid transit authorities such as New York, New Jersey, Toronto, Detroit, and San Francisco, just to name a few. It's also employed by hospitals, cancer clinics, schools, and professional sports teams. So anyway, Aegis has been and will continue to be an effective and successfully long-term product that goes well beyond COVID. So it fit what we were looking for. The other product is Glass 2. This is a new high-tech and multifunctional and most interestingly, wearable technology that provides thermal imaging, facial recognition, QR code and documentation reading, real-time interfacing, and much more. And here too, while it's a wonderful biosecurity item, which can be used as part of a layered protocol plan against COVID, it's a technology which goes well beyond it. With that being said, we do have a couple of short 60-second videos, and if I ask Tom and Larry to play each one for us, I think you'll find each of these extremely interesting. Thank you again for your time and best wishes to all of you.
Introducing Rokit 2's second generation Glass 2 thermal detection glasses. These glasses are the superior choice for rapid, safe, unobtrusive temperature screening at busy, high-traffic public spaces. Ideal for cruise ship and ferry operators, maritime terminal buildings, airports, theme and attraction parks, resort hotels, event and expo venues, and mass transit transportation. Glass 2 measures in real time and accurately scans individuals at a rate of 10 per second with high reliability. The glasses constantly calibrate using artificial intelligence algorithms for ambient temperature, assuring accurate readings in any setting. At an average distance of 2 meters, or about 6 feet, temperature can be monitored at a safe distance. And screening is unobtrusive, with no contact, no bother, no delay for those being monitored. With more rigorous safety precautions and protocols being employed globally, Glass 2 is an excellent complement to your ongoing efforts. Glass 2's open SDK can be programmed to integrate apps for QR scanning, facial recognition, license plate recognition, and real-time image sharing. Using Glass 2 is crucial to optimize time and work efficiency in places with high flows of people. Glass 2. For more information, contact us at info@glass2.biz.
So much seems to have changed these days. Remember all the things we used to do? Our families, our friends, our work, our play. No doubt we are moving towards a new normal. And as we do, we want to get there safely and with confidence. Aegis Microbe Shield can help us get there. Aegis is the world's most widely used antimicrobial surface protectant. Originally formulated by Dow Corning in 1970 and later acquired by Microban, Aegis is non-toxic, eco-friendly, and approved by the U.S. EPA, Health Canada, and the European Union. Combined with routine cleaning and disinfection practices, Aegis complements your biosafety protocols and helps protect both hard and soft surfaces from bacteria, mold, mildew, fungus, and algae. Long-lasting and highly effective protection means Aegis only needs to be applied once per year. Many leading transit authorities, companies, hotels, professional sports teams, and institutions already trust Aegis. You should too. Protection where you live, work, and play. The Aegis Microbe Shield will be there for you.
We want to thank Tony for his recorded participation. Unfortunately, again, he couldn't be here today. Finally, I would like to introduce Patrick Schneider and Jason Idoni from Sunward Tours operating in Port Canaveral, Florida. A quick side note, Patrick and I share a common background. We both held the same position at Royal Caribbean, and we both attended the University of Colorado. Go Buffs! Jason pivoted their business due to the pandemic and started a totally new tour initiative, creating high-touch, soft adventure experiences for small groups. Patrick and Jason, welcome, and please show us what you're doing there on the coast of Florida.
Thank you, Tom. Again, thanks to everybody for participating in this. It's a real honor to be able to talk to all of you. I probably know a lot of you from the past, as with Tom. Jason has been working with Sunward Tours for how long now?
5 years.
5 years up here in Port Canaveral. We operate everything from tours for the port of call ships that come to Port Canaveral, going to Kennedy Space Center, to the different parks, of course, and then airboat rides, pontoon boats, kayak tours, etc. In addition to that, we do disembarkation tours, and we also do transfers back and forth for the turnaround ships. We've expanded a little bit up in New England also, just to kind of keep things interesting. But overall, it's that's kind of what our bucket is at the moment. So we will be kind of going through what we've been encountering here in Port Canaveral, because it's probably somewhat similar to what y'all are seeing down in the Caribbean in particular. And many of you may have already discovered a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about. So if that's the case, then apologize for the repetition. But these are some of the ideas that we had and some of the ways that we figured out that we could keep things going and keep things interesting and sort of prepare for the future. So I think we're ready for the first slide. Thank you, guys. So yeah, as everybody knows, no cruise ships for 6 months, maybe a little bit more, hopefully not much. Biggest question that everybody's going to ask themselves: what have you been doing with your business model since then? Now, when I say that, I'm just trying to get an idea of, have you completely shut down? Have you decided to keep working in a different aspect? Have you stashed all of your equipment and said, I'm going to go into an internet business? What have you been doing? I know a lot of you that are in the tour operating business got into it because of your passion. So I'll be bringing that up more and more as we go into this, but that's definitely something that I think is what drives many of the tour operators, and it's one of the things that makes us all so successful, is because we do love what we do. Biggest thing that is affecting everybody is the concept of social distancing with a tour program. And we haven't really gotten a full idea of what that's going to look at officially. But everybody's heard the rumors. There's different ways that we can look at it. You obviously can only put so many people within so much distance of each other. And there's a lot of ways that that affects it. I'll give you some examples of, I'll let Jason kind of speak on what he's been doing here with some of the stuff that we're doing with the local market. And I'll be getting into how you get into the local market here in a little bit. But I've listed here some of the transportation and things like this that are going into it. Jason, I'll let you kind of talk about what you've been going into.
Yeah, we decided to stay within our local community and make that pivot to try to keep our staff and our vendors and our partners working through this tough time. We're making sure that whatever business we can float their way, we do. We're lucky here in Central Florida to have such a large timeshare business, such a large hotel market, and tourism slowed down considerably, but there still is a strong tourism market here in this area. So we took advantage of that and went and introduced ourselves, and we built a kind of a more user-friendly tourism program, basing it off of our excursion experience of the cruise lines. We know kind of what they're looking for, you know, that all-inclusive, that feeling of you know, you're getting something beyond the basic. We took that to each one of our neighbors, whether they're the timeshares, the hotels, and offered this program, you know, basically a short excursion program to all of our hotels and our timeshares. And we brought it to them, and they embraced it. They were able to offer this all-inclusive, this excursion feeling to these guests that are visiting the hotels here. And at the same time, we were able to offer the social distancing. We were able to keep it within all the protocols of what the current state was or is at this given moment. So, you know, exclusive boat rides where they wouldn't normally get that. And we're able to give it to them with that full experience, all while making sure our vendors that we know on the other end of this are still involved and still working with us. And as we adjust and change, preparing for the start of cruising to start back up, we have a running start on this already. We're not going to come into it completely blind. You know, whatever that it has worked thus far, whatever it hasn't worked thus far is going to allow us to be able to get that running start and really get that good jump up on it. We've been able to pivot to really be able to keep everybody involved and be ready for the switchover.
So yeah, some of the things that, you know, are going to be critical with obviously with all the tours in the Caribbean. There's such a variety of tours. There's so many different pieces that go into it. Transportation is going to be a big one, and many of the Caribbean areas, you're using local transportation, be it the you know, the safari buses, it could be the local taxis. These are the things that you got to start thinking about if you haven't already, and how that's going to look, and how are you going to present it to the cruise lines, and saying this is your social distancing. If it's a family of 4, they can do this. Are you going to move every other seat? What are you going to do in the vans? How many people can you put into a 15-passenger van safely? How's it going to look? Those are first pieces. The waiver signing itself is actually an interesting one. In the old days, you know, we used to have everybody, here's a clipboard and pass it around. So that's going to be something that you're going to have to present in a safe factor of less and less contact, less and less people getting a hold of it. Outside impacts on your tour group are the dreaded ones. Those are things, if you take somebody to a beach and you've got other people at the beach, are you going to have your own area that's locked off? Are you going to a restaurant? Are you going to any other area where people that aren't within your group are going to be able to interact with your group or could possibly interact with your group? How do you make that so it doesn't happen? So those are some of the things that you kind of want to think about and start looking at. And that's what, you know, with what Jason was saying, what we're trying to do here is play with that with the local market, with the hotel groups and the concierge groups and all of this, to see how does it look when we try it out with them. So when we go back to the cruises, when they start coming here, we can say, look, we tested it. It works really well. Okay, we're not going to go to this place because there's too much interaction with other people, but we found another place. Moving forward, what are the cruise lines going to require? There's a lot of rumors out there, but to be honest, I haven't really seen an actual document that says, here it is, and this is what we're going to look at for the tours. They've given us some speculation. I know that there was a big document that was sent out by Royal Caribbean and Norwegian, and that has some listings on it, but when it comes to day-to-day tours, and again, the diversity of the Caribbean tours is immense. In these ports, we've got 60 tours, and they range everything from small individual submarines to kayak tours to catamaran tours to bus tours. You name it, you guys have done it. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. If it's a cooking tour or whatever, everything's going to be different. So we've got sort of a generalized, here it is, but it's not exact. So have you had any direct contact or direct, I guess you could say, instructions from them? And that's what you really need to kind of think about, is what have they really told you about your particular tour? Don't look at the rumors, because it might not apply to you the way that they're wording it. So take it all with a grain of salt. Don't get freaked out. Don't get scared. Don't think, oh, I can't do that with my tour. It may not apply to your tour necessarily. You may have a small maximum, a small number of people, and you may not need to do what they're doing for the 50 passenger buses. So hold on and wait it out and find out exactly what your tour is going to look like in their eyes. And again, that kind of is the impact to your tours. Is it going to look different? Did your maximum used to be 30 and now you can only do 15? Or, everybody's thinking half the people, 50%, we got to cut everything in half. Not necessarily. You want to tell them what we're doing with the buses here in Central Florida?
We've done everything is following CDC guidelines and making sure we have 6 feet of distance. We actually took a tape measure into our vehicles and measured 6 feet from each seat. And if that means that that's the case, we've been able to go to full-size buses, and instead of dropping it down to half the capacity, we can drop it down to 36, 34 passengers on it instead of the 25, which is the 50%, and still maintain that 6 feet of distance through it. It's our time to kind of get creative, to figure out how to make it work on these very stringent rules. So when it does come time, we have a better idea. But yeah, the bus transportation, we're all worried about it going forward. Best way to do it is get into it directly with our hands into it and figure it out for ourselves and help the cruise lines when they start back up.
All right, I just saw something saying our microphone was a little hard to hear, so we'll try to speak up a little clearer. Sorry about that. So essentially what Jason was saying is, we've worked with the local bus company here, and they've gone out and they have readjusted the seating within the buses and taken a tape measure and gotten a little more creative, saying, look, if we're going to use these buses for our cruise ship guests, let's move the bus seats, maybe take a couple of them out and make it so it is a 6-foot distance between them. So this is a kind of mentality that we're trying to take to where we're not going to have to just go all the way down to every other seat, 50%, and we can adjust and say, we all know where our thresholds are for our profit margins, et cetera. Going from half as many seats to, say, 60 or 70% of the seats is a big difference when you're looking at your transportation piece. Now, not last but not least, but one of the things that we have to always think about, because every Caribbean island is their own government for the most part. And your own government's going to have their own things that they want to do. And they may be impacting them now with with your local markets, with the hotels, with all of the, the bed and breakfasts, everything like that, all the local, I guess you could say, hoteliers are starting to bring people in, and they're going to be wanting to have them do stuff. People are going to want to do things, but the governments themselves may have their own restrictions. Pay attention to those. See how they look with what the cruise industry is asking, and see what is the crossover. Which one's greater? Which one can you work with more? And, it may be that your local government's requirements are they're more strict than the cruise ones. And if that's the case, talk to them, find out how you can come to a happy medium, or tell the cruise lines, look, I know you're only asking us to do this, but we actually have to go stricter. So keep that in mind. Don't just think cruise lines say we have to do this, we have to do this. Look at all the parts that are impacting you, because you are a local operator. Now, as Jason mentioned, we got into the local and hotel markets a lot deeper than we had before. With all the cruise industry that's here, we were pretty much predominant with them. Now, we did go into and start approaching some of the, Westgate was one of them?
Yeah, the local timeshares. I mean, we all have those timeshares all sitting around us. And those are basically, they're there They're looking for that inclusiveness that you always find on a cruise line. So they were an easy transition.
And it translates well into what the cruise lines are looking for as well. You're looking at groups, especially with the timeshares and that. You've got families, you've got a couple of families at the same time. You can put them together in a group of, say, 15 to 20, and that's kind of sometimes what you might be looking at with the cruise market. So that's a good way that you can test your theories and test what you want to do with the cruise lines. So when the lines start coming back to your islands, you can go back to them and say, well, we've been doing this for a couple of months, and here's what we found out. It works if we do it this way. It works if we don't. It doesn't work if we do it this way. So what they may have thought is their normal tour that you were doing for the last 7 years, all of a sudden you're like, well, now we got to change it, but we changed it, and it's actually better. Benefits being that you can hit the ground running, and you're not testing it on the cruise market itself. They don't, you don't have to go through that struggle phase where, you bring the guests out and then you get that black eye, and then the guys on board the ship just saying, oh my gosh, we ran that tour last week. They didn't know what they were doing. They weren't ready for us. So we don't really want to promote that tour because those guys, they weren't ready. They're not sure what they're doing. And last but not least, is this a long-term or short-term solution for you? Because what we found out is this is actually diversifying us quite nicely. So even when the ships do start coming back, we now have a new market stream. We now have something else that gives us diversification. I know in the Caribbean in the summer times, for example, a lot of the islands, especially down deeper in the south, you lose a lot of the cruises, you lose a lot of the lines themselves. But now with this diversification, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've lost business. You've lost some, but at least you can keep your core business going. You can keep some of your good guides on. You can keep your transportation piece. You can keep your guys trained. You don't have to bring them back completely raw when the first ship comes back at the end of the year. So that's maybe what you want to look at. Or you may just say, look, all I'm doing this is for the short term, just to get me through this time, and then I'm going to go right back to the cruise, and that's going to be my primary focus. So think about that when you're developing your different business models. All right, next slide. So the time to start is right about now. Your tropical season is almost over. We had quite a little bit of a run there in September. We still have October, which is never fun. But the regular tourism is starting to come back. And this is a time that you need to be ready for. You've got the tourism coming back. You've got the people in the hotels. You've got the timeshares, as Jason said, bed and Airbnbs, all of that. Who do you go to? Who are your local contacts? The concierges, the hotels. Are there things online? The Airbnbs. How do you get a hold of those guys to say, hey, we can offer tours? There's a lot of localized businesses at the bars, at people that, when they go to the restaurants, all these different things, and how they can talk to the new tourists that have just come in. How do you promote yourself? Do you go there and, do you do a demonstration? Do you do do you tell a hotel or somebody that, listen, I'm going to come to you at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when you get all your new guests in, because we do something like that at the place, right?
Yep, we do that with our timeshares. We do almost a shore excursion spiel with them. We sit in front of them, we tell them everything that's offered, tell them everything in the community, we try to direct them the correct way. We stay within the realms of the regulations that the hotels and the timeshares offer to us at any given time, whether it be for their specific programs or what the county or the city are proposing at that moment. But we really try to get in front of the guests, and we take control of our products.
And then, of course, the hotels themselves may have restrictions on what people can do. And that can sometimes work in your favor, because they might tell them, look, if you're going to come back to our hotel, we don't want you to leave the bubble, or whatever it is. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to work with the hotels and saying, okay, and that's not too different from what the cruise lines are looking at. If you've seen what they're doing in Europe, it's a very restrictive policy. They're pretty much locking their people down in their groups and saying, if you leave the group, you can't come back to the ship. Now, we don't know if it's going to be that strict with the cruise lines when they come to the Caribbean. Nobody's really said anything about what that's going to look like. But it is something that you can kind of tell the hotels, like, hey, the reason that you want to go with us is because we've developed this in foresight of what the cruise lines are going to be doing. And we developed this actual program. So this is going to be good for your guests because they're not really going to be a risk. We're going to be protecting them. We're going to be making sure that they don't get exposed to other people too much. We're going to keep it sort of under control. And that might be a good selling point to the hotel, but some of the hotels themselves may say, we need to protect our guests. So use that to your advantage. All right, guys. Next slide. Okay, communication with the client. Always fun, but and I know the cruise lines are going to kill me for this, but I am promoting you to initiate contact with them first. This is your business model, and if you're showing that type of desire and you want really to get back into it, go to the cruise lines and say, okay, the time is now. I know you guys are starting to look at coming back. What do I need to do? What are you going to tell me? What do you need from me? I think that we've been approached by a lot of them for basically allotments, but not so much the actual programs. So I know that they've been reaching out to everybody, and you've probably gotten inundated with different things, but go to them and be proactive. Take those steps. Let them know that you're really looking at this. Ask them questions of what is good for them. They're kind of throwing things at you right now, which is saying, we need this, we need this, we need this. But you know what you can do on your side, on your island, in your destination. You know what the possibilities are. So you should go to them and say, look, this is what we can do here. So let's figure out, what works, because this is what our island is telling us we can do. Ask them if this is okay. Ask them, can we lengthen the tour? Can we shorten the tour? Can we put lesser people on the tour? Can we put more people on the tour, more departures, those type of things. Suggesting for the allotment falls right into that. Are they looking for more allotments, less people? Or just because it's less people doesn't necessarily mean that it's safer. Are they going to say, okay, we want you to cut your people in half from 50 to 25, but you still need to use just as much transportation? Does that make sense? Is that efficient? These are things you've got to ask yourself, and you've got to ask them. Find out if they've got deployment schedules. But I know that they're going crazy with trying to figure out how they're going to send the ships out, which ships are going to go out first, where they're going to go, anything like that. So keep asking them. Do you have a deployment schedule? Find out, when are you coming to my island? What can I do to be ready? And what's the capacity on the ships? Rumors are that they're going to be operating at 50%, which sounds pretty consistent with all the ships. But find out, is that for the first 2 months? Is that for 6 months? They may not know the answer, but at least you're asking the questions. You're being the ones that are driving it. So drive that questioning and make sure that they know that you're on top of it and you're really looking at it, and you're being the ones that want to do this the right way. And this is always a delicate one, and I know that Tom and I were discussing this yesterday about being on the other side of the fence, but balance your budget. Your volume's going to change, the amount of people on your tours are going to change. This is something that you got to take into consideration. New costs, because you've got to do extra cleaning, you've got a different guide to guest ratio. These are the things that you can't be doing this and losing money. And you got to be straight up and honest with cruise lines and say, you guys, this is your regulation. This is what we need to do to make it work. Business plan after you finish with this. Are you going to go cruise industry heavy? Are you going to put all your eggs in the basket again, or for the first time? Or are you going to try to make it so you've got a little bit of a balance? I know many of you know the Melvilles in Jamaica with Chuck Group, and they're very well balanced. They have been over the years. They've got a good diversification between hotel and cruise. But Jamaica's a big island, and they've got a completely unique game plan as it is. But that's something that you guys can work on too. Diversification might not work for everybody. It may be something where you're like, no, I'm really good with just the cruise industry because I know what I'm getting. And we've noticed that sometimes working with these hotels, it's 2 or 3 times as much work as it is with the ships. So, you know, they can be pretty high maintenance themselves. So I'm not making you think that this is going to be an easy thing, because we know on our side that definitely there is a there's a high bit that comes with the actual working with hotels themselves.
Turn into the ShoreX, the tour operator and the ShoreX team. So you're wearing two hats now at this point. So it's that much more difficult.
Yeah, often dealing with the guests directly themselves instead of having that in between. And then be realistic with your numbers when you're looking at your business model. We don't know what it's going to look like initially, 6 months or even in 12 months. I mean, we're all speculating in 12 months, we're hopefully going to be pretty much back to normal, but we don't know where the ships are going to be. We don't know how many ships are going to be here. We don't know if this is going to be just completely done with, or if there's going to want us to keep doing the regulations we've got. So, you know, it's hard to have as crystal ball that's going to tell you what it is, but again, things to keep in mind, things to want that you're going to want to think about. And at the end of the day, as I said at the beginning, stay positive. Y'all are tour operators because you love the stuff. I know many of you, and I know the history that many of you went through. I've seen a lot of you start from zero and turn into something great. Keep it up. The people are going to come back eventually. If it's going to be cruise, if it's going to be individual, you love what you do. You love showing people your islands and your destinations. So stay positive, and we need you out there. All right, that's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Really appreciate it. Zach, Jason, and Patrick, thanks so much for each of your presentations and showcasing diversity in your business to keep yourself afloat and stay not stay idle. You were innovative and reinvented yourself and did simply wait for the cruise lines to restart. So, Tom, I know we got some questions out there, so I'll turn it over to you at this point. And Zach and Patrick, if you guys want to come back on, it would be great.
All right. Okay, great. There we go. You know, I was just Patrick and Jason, just to jump back on your presentation. You know, it just seemed like so much at the core of this is collaboration and making sure that, you know, you guys can build your plan, your business plan, your tour, whatever, but if it doesn't meet the requirements of this case of the hotel or Westgate or the timeshare, or the local authorities that say you have to be at this level or that level, or in the future when the cruise ships come back, you're dead in the water. So really that communication, collaboration seems really key, no?
Most definitely, yeah. I won't say we learned the hard way, because we were lucky with the initial talking with Westgate, for example. When we started talking with them, it was great communication at the beginning. And they're the ones, once they found out our background with the cruise industry and what we were planning on doing, they sort of approached us in a way almost. They came to us and said, wow, well, that would work just perfect for what we're doing. So, but, you know, in saying that, we've gone to some other hotels and said, it's working for them. Are you guys interested in working with us as well?
Mm-hmm. How does the whoever the officials are, how do they enforce this sort of social distancing? Are you kind of on your own to make sure that you're really keeping the social distancing that you need and those
yeah,
kind
there's nobody enforcing this thus far. It's really in our best benefit to enforce it and really embrace it a little bit at this point, because this is what our future is. This is the way it's going to operate, and for everybody to have this comfort level and continue traveling and continue with these tours, they have to have a comfort level, and they have to feel, and word of mouth just as much on the ship, it runs within our community. So it's in everybody's best interest at this point for us to enforce it, for us to overcompensate. I mean, you want to go beyond what they're asking you to do just to make sure that we don't have an issue.
Because my expectation is once the cruise companies start back up, they're going to want some sort of insurance and documentation that you're actually doing what you said you're going to do once the guest walks over the gangway. So it's kind of an interesting little problem set there. Pat, Zachary, thinking of collaboration in the development of your product Aquax, dealing with the cruise lines has got to be easy compared to, say, dealing with the EPA and getting a disinfectant passed through. Do you have any thoughts on that, on the topic of collaboration?
Yeah, well, I'm the director of marketing and public relations for a tour operator in a small ship cruise line, and now I've know more than I've ever cared to know about the EPA. but it's been good, and it's part of the game in order to get into this. So it's been definitely a pivot in a career sense. But yeah, the EPA has very clear-cut, strict standards on what you can, say and what you can't say and how you can market it, and the tests and protocols that you need to go through in order to, market the product a certain way. I think that, in working with the cruise lines, all of them have been excited just that we have this ability to make it in-house and that we'll be using it on our tours. The thing that's interesting when you think about, I know that disinfectants in general, there's been a supply chain issue, but take any supply chain issue that might be occurring and multiply that by a lot when you're talking about Alaska and remote Alaska. So the fact that we can kind of solve a supply chain issue by having it here is great. And we really hope to collaborate with the industry, not only in Alaska, but also elsewhere. I mean, we talk about, I know Florida's kind of the cruise capital, and we have production through Aquawak's partnerships there. So we hope to hear from tour operators down there, tour operators even south of there.
Are you, so at this point, you probably would have the flexibility to expand into places like the Caribbean and Mexico, but you're not there at this moment?
So the way it works is we are we manufacture this product, we distribute it, but the Aquawak's headquarters is actually in Florida. So through our partnerships with cruise lines, we're letting people know this isn't just an Alaska thing. Come talk to us if you're interested in general. It's a good way to open back up, and a great product.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. We've received a couple of questions in the Q&A. So the first one's a little bit long, but I'm going to read it through. And this is probably more directed towards Patrick and Jason. So brace yourself. I reached out. This is from a tour operator. I reached out to NCL, for example, and they said they were not adding any new tours to the program due to the limitation of capacity, especially if all the reduction to 50%, and I would have thought that the cruise line would be looking for new private tours for families and these sort of bubble groups. Does it make sense for you to use that new, that they might need new tours? Because it seems odd to them that they seem to be not interested in any new tours.
My take on that is I would wait and see. I mean, out of the initial box, that's a pretty standard answer, just because it's extra work, new tours. We all know that. We all know the guys that in the head offices are really busy. But I think there's going to be a point to where they're going to start realizing that we've got a demand for this. I don't think that they're going to understand what the demand is going to be for these smaller tours with the families, the ones who do want to be in a bubble. We're seeing it here with the private desks, with the private groups, with the timeshares and stuff. They don't want to necessarily mix with everybody else on the airboats and all this. They want to say, we want to be on our own bubble. There's more of a demand than there has been in the past. And I really do think that's going to translate over to the cruise industry when the people do start coming back and they start looking for the tours. So I would say hang tight, let them know that you're there, and, be ready for it, because I really do think that it's probably going to come.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're going to need alternate solutions. And some of the tours that have been maybe part of the foundation of the tour program in that destination, they may not be able to run at all, or they may not be able to run in the same way at the same volume.
Exactly.
Another question, in Europe, we work with tiered pricing. From your experience, would that work now for the Caribbean also?
Again, my opinion, I think that's a great way to approach it, especially now that they're going to be asking you to reduce your capacities. I think that the tier pricing is a logical model, and it's a justifiable model. And you can go back to them and saying, they know how it works. It's you get one big piece of transportation, you got to break it down with the number of people. If they're asking you to make it smaller and less people on that piece of transportation, it's a logic piece. You don't necessarily have to show them all your cards as far as your numbers go, but I think it's pretty easy to justify by saying, well, if you're going to ask me to put less people on the same piece of transportation, that cost stays the same, but I'm getting less money for it, so I can't be losing money on this. So I think it's not a hard thing to justify when you go back to them and saying tiered pricing is the way to go.
Yeah, agreed and well said. And also, from your experience in the local market, is there more demand for private tours? And I would say private / small group.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're seeing a large demand in it. I mean, the families want to stay with the families of 4. They want to stay with their families of 8. Whereas before, when they're doing short excursions, they're okay being clumped in with, 6 or 7 different families all going on the same excursion. Now they want to be separated, not just for experience, but for what they feel is their safety.
Safety and security.
So no, absolutely.
Okay, Larry, I'll jump it back to you. I know we've gone over just a little bit. I still have a few more questions here, but I'm gonna leave it there and turn it back over to you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Back, Jason and Patrick, again, many thanks for joining us today. And I think the questions that you did get out, Tom, were relevant and important. And thank you guys for giving such great answers. Destinations Together and AMPC Global, which is Aegis, as you saw in the video, will be participating in C-Trade Global next week in lieu of a regular webinar on Wednesday. Please visit our website, www.destinationstogether.com, to register for this webinar. Please don't hesitate to share our website with others. It is open to everybody. Many thanks to you all for your continued support. Tom and I really appreciate it. Be strong, be safe, be healthy. Again, Zach, Jason, and Patrick, and Tony for participating on a video. Many thanks for being here with us today. Tom?
Thanks, guys. It was awesome. Really appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.